Hello, my name is Julie Dalavis, and I'm a faculty member and Associate Director of the Program Evaluation and Research Unit in the Institute for Educational Initiatives at the University of Notre Dame. Today, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to share some findings from the Catholic Education Data Study with you, including the common data practices, challenges, and aspirations of central office personnel in Catholic education. First, a quick overview of our time together. I will begin with some context for considering issues of data in Catholic schools and briefly discuss the origins of the study. Then I will walk through the research questions, the data and methods, and then we'll spend the bulk of our time on the findings, the common practices, challenges, and aspirations that emerged in the data. I'll close with some key considerations offered by those in the field, as well as next steps for the data study. So schools across sector have been faced with increased accountability pressures over the last 2 decades. And while Catholic schools do not face the same level of pressure as many public schools, they don't exist in a vacuum. As public schools improve their data practices and provide greater transparency related to academic achievement, Catholic schools face increasing expectations from parents and other stakeholders to demonstrate how they compare to their public school counterparts. Currently, Catholic schools rely on research studies that are more than 2 decades old to make the case for the Catholic school advantage and to market the academic value proposition for Catholic schools. And as private schools, Catholic schools face greater challenges related to operational health and vitality than public schools. Within these current conditions, the strategic use of data can help Catholic schools consider how they are doing, what areas need greater support, and where improvements may be needed. So this study flows directly from Notre Dame's efforts with NCEA on the National Data Project, where one of our specific goals and domains includes a better understanding of the landscape of data practices in Catholic schools. We began this work with a superintendent survey at the 2019 NCEA convention in Chicago, and we gained a sense of the wide variation in dioceses' access to and use of data. In addition, the need to better understand Catholic school data and data practices also emerged from Notre Dame's program evaluation work, as we are increasingly required to submit program evaluation reports on our programs as part of federal and private grant requirements. And many of these evaluations could be improved with greater access to student achievement data. So to gain a better sense of the data landscape in Catholic schools, we asked 3 questions. How do Catholic schools' central office personnel use data? What challenges limit their use of data? And what aspirations for using data do they have? To consider these questions, we created a stratified random sample of 27 dioceses, taking into account the number of schools within the diocese, as well as its location geographically, to ensure that we had access to the smallest and the largest dioceses and those in between. And we included an oversample of the largest dioceses to ensure that we included more than 1 diocese in each strata. Invitations to participate were sent to the diocesan superintendent over email, and Zoom interviews were scheduled at the superintendent or their delegates' convenience. A semi-structured protocol was used, and each interview lasted between 45 and 60 minutes. All interviews were transcribed for analysis, and an iterative open coding process identified emergent themes related to each research question. First, some broad overall findings. I found a wide variation in data practices in use in dioceses across the country. The use of data exists on a continuum, with some dioceses beginning to use data in more intentional ways, and others with more sophisticated systems and teams in place to work with data. However, the variation I found was not due to size of the diocese or its location, but rather varied according to some of the common challenges the diocese faced. So current data practices. 2 common data practices were commonly referenced in interviews. First, many superintendents are making efforts to standardize data practices in their diocese, as well as to centralize some school and student level data. Practices include the adoption of a common diocesan student information system, common budget or finance system, and the standardizing of budgeting and accounting across parishes. Also, the adoption of formative achievement tests provide real-time data at 2 or more time points during the school year, which are meant to provide teachers with usable information to guide their instruction and to meet student needs. Second, many central offices are building tools to monitor operational vitality at the school level. Nearly half of the dioceses I talked to have developed or are in the process of developing some form of reporting tool to capture basic metrics. These are referred to by different names. For example, some refer to it as a school report, others a snapshot, dashboard, scorecard, matrix, or index. And these are currently internal documents that are fairly static. They're updated once or twice a year, and they usually include academic achievement, enrollment, and financial data. And these are put together manually, accessing data from a number of different systems, surveys, and other forms of data collection. Many are created using simple tools such as Google Sheets or Excel spreadsheets. And these tools are used mainly to start conversations and to identify areas where support may be needed. So moving on to challenges, perhaps the biggest structural challenge that emerged was that of governance. Catholic schools have strong cultures of local control, and in many dioceses, the central office operates in an advisory or consulting capacity. As I mentioned previously, this is an area where there is great variation among dioceses, but governance issues have kept some dioceses from being able to use common systems and assessments, and in turn, from schools sharing data with the diocese. In some places, schools only share data when they have a critical problem and need assistance. Some diocesan personnel feel that this limits what they can do to advance data practice, and others have found ways to move forward despite these challenges. And we'll talk more about their recommendations toward the end. As I just mentioned, for some dioceses, not having a common system or having access to the data systems schools are using is a challenge, and that central office personnel must rely on school principals to collect the data, respond to surveys, and provide the necessary information. And central office personnel are keenly aware of the demands on principals' time, and those without access to systems have to weight the value of the data with the burden of time placed on school leaders. Many dioceses are moving toward common systems, and some have already made the switch, but the majority continue to try to make progress on this goal. There we go. Other challenges. Those with access to a common data system discuss challenges of missing data or errors in the data that is entered into the student information system. Many superintendents agree that these are important tools, but stress the need for the information that schools provide to be both accurate and complete. Another challenge that emerged is that many of these systems do not talk to each other, or they're not easily integrated. Ideally, ID numbers and other data might be integrated across systems, and this works in some pairings of systems better than others. But many superintendents find that they have to manually pull data from multiple systems in order to create some of the dashboard-like tools we previously discussed. Further, many central office personnel talked about the time they had to invest in working with data, pulling it from multiple systems, verifying it, translating it, and using it to create the reporting tools. Many of those working with data in all but the largest systems wear multiple hats, and data is only a small piece of what they do. Some dioceses rely on a skilled teacher or an assistant superintendent to run reports and summarize the data, and some superintendents have taken on these roles themselves among their other responsibilities. Other challenges are related to the culture surrounding data. Some central office personnel face skepticism from school leaders over the value of data and the benefit of collecting and analyzing school and student level data. Some feel the need to convince school personnel of the efficiency that these data systems can bring to school operations, specifically the benefits that a shift to a student information system can bring both at the school and diocesan level. Others report trying to shift mindsets from discussing aggregate student achievement levels to considering and measuring individual student growth as the outcome of interest. Other superintendents feel that some principals and teachers may be insecure about what the data might suggest, and therefore are less on board with using data and sharing data with the central office. One last broad challenge was that of understanding and using data. Many acknowledge that it is one thing to collect and organize data, but that translating that data for others and encouraging schools to use data are another complete set of challenges. Many feel they are making progress in the organizing and collecting, but that there is much work to be done in making full use of the data at hand. Moving on to aspirations, some central office personnel aspire to these uniform systems with central access, with some making inroads and plans to bring all schools on board. Others seek to develop and improve these dashboard type tools, specifically to use these to identify weaknesses and better target the support that the central office can provide. Other superintendents are keenly aware that while Catholic schools may be making progress in measuring student academic outcomes through formative assessments, we still need better measures to understand the impact of faith formation and Catholic identity on the students that Catholic schools serve. Other measurement goals include tracking long-term outcomes of attending Catholic schools, such as college attendance and completion. Finally, superintendents aspire to use data better and to help their school leaders and classroom teachers use data better as well. Within the central office, they want to be more proactive rather than reactive in identifying areas where support is needed. And they also want to use data to better understand the local context and help individual schools solve some of the problems they are facing. They also understand the need to better define the value proposition of Catholic schools. Superintendents would like to help school leaders use data to set improvement goals, be more comfortable sharing with each other, and to improve marketing efforts. They would also like to see teachers use formative data to improve instruction, address individual student needs, and measure growth. And many are targeting specific professional development in this area. So what should we take away from this research? Variation in data practices exist, and some dioceses are more advanced in this area than others. Some have made great strides in standardizing and centralizing achievement, enrollment, and financial data. Many of these are using data to build tools to monitor operational vitality and to identify areas where support is needed. Many central offices are facing common challenges related to governance, access to data, limited use of data systems, limited resources of time and personnel, issues around data culture, and the understanding and use of data by stakeholders. They also share common aspirations, including further centralizing data, developing and improving dashboard type tools, measuring faith formation and long-term outcomes, and simply using data better at all levels, central office, school, and classroom. There are great ideas and practices in use that could be shared among superintendents and central office personnel, and we'll turn to some of these ideas now. I'm going to focus on two areas where some advice was offered regarding facing the challenges around data culture and building data tools. Some ways to improve data culture. Several superintendents discussed the need for building trust and strong relationships between the central office and school leaders. To do so, some central offices focused on transparency and the possible efficiencies of data. They also shared how the data would be used with school leaders, with full acknowledgement that data and numbers reflect only part of the story and need contextualization. Further, when central offices model effective use of data, schools can see the benefits that data may have for their own administration and decisions. They encourage data sharing among schools, and a few superintendents described using data to create a report that compared schools to the diocesan average, and others have matched schools with strengths with schools that needed support or assistance. For example, one superintendent described connecting one school that had adopted a new math curriculum and seen substantial student growth, and the central office put that school leader in touch with a school leader who was looking for a new curriculum, so that they could discuss the process, options, and how the first school made the decision to adopt the specific math curriculum. When asked how to move toward a dashboard, some advised that the diocese should start small and build on successes. Use the data you already collect, for example, enrollment, and begin to track these over time and share reports with schools. Others recommended providing some assistance, either in the form of professional development or financial assistance, to begin the adoption process of student information systems. Some suggested a tiered approach to adoption, and others recommended more of a rip the Band-Aid off strategy of switching. Change is difficult, but demonstrating the efficiencies for the school related to a system or a new system, along with the efficiencies that a common system offers the diocese, could help make the case for the switch. Many superintendents also discussed the array of individuals already in their diocese that have had success using data or that have data-related skills to offer. Some superintendents felt that recent graduates of teacher education and principal formation programs are more comfortable and adept with using data and the importance of data. So looking for these skills and dispositions in potential hires may be something to consider. So this study is the first step in a larger project. As part of this study, we also began to explore school-level data practices by surveying principals. Our next step is to interview principals to better understand how they are thinking about using data. We then hope to explore the classroom level, first by surveying teachers and then following up with teacher interviews to understand data at the classroom level. And finally, we hope to compile and disseminate best practices at all levels. I'd like to thank all those who participated in this study, along with NCEA and the Institute for Educational Initiatives for their collaboration and support of this research. And please feel welcome to reach out to me with any questions or comments. I've listed my email here. It's simply julie.dalavis@nd.edu. Thanks so much for your time and attention, and I look forward to sharing more of this research with you in the future.